The summary for Lesson 5 reviews a translation within a coordinate plane, reflection within a coordinate plane, and rotations within a coordinate plane. For the translation, each point on the image moves the same distance along the x-axis, in this case moves 3 units to the right along the x-axis, both A and B, and moves the same distance along the y-axis in the same direction. So moves 2 units down, A moves 2 units down, and B moves 2 units down. So once again, both A and B move 3 units to the right and 2 units down, which moves the entire figure, the whole figure, 3 units to the right and 2 units down. For reflection, the points remain in the same order. So if I'm reflecting A prime to A, the coordinates are going to remain in the same order. So it's going to be 2, 1, and it's going to be 2, 1, but then one of the coordinates is going to change signs. In this case, since this is being reflected over the x-axis, the x value remains the same. So you're traveling along the x-axis to the same point, which in this case is 2 units, and then you're just going to turn in the opposite direction. So for A prime, that's 1 unit in the positive direction. For A, that's 1 unit in the negative direction. So notice that the value for y changes signs from 1 to -1 if you're going from A prime to A. Now if you're going from A to A double prime, so this is called a double prime, this is reflected over the y-axis. So notice that the y value is the same because you're traveling down the y-axis to a -1 unit. So it's -1 and it's -1. So the y value remains the same, and it's the x value that changes signs. So instead of going in the positive direction 2 units, you go in the negative direction 2 units, which is a -2. So for reflections, the coordinates remain in the same order, but one of the coordinates will change signs depending on what direction you're moving. Okay, rotation, a little bit more complicated. The coordinates will change, will switch spots. So the x-coordinate will become the y-coordinate, and the y-coordinate will become the x-coordinate. And depending on where you're moving, if you're moving in this case from quadrant 1 to quadrant 2, it's the x-coordinate that will change signs. So notice that to get to B prime, the 2 switches to the y-coordinate. So here the 2 becomes the y-coordinate, and the 3 switches to the x-coordinate. The 3 switches here to the x-coordinate, but it is the x-coordinate that changes signs. So there's a switch in the coordinates between the x and y values, and one of them will change signs. So you can count to get to B. You count 2 units along the y-axis, 1, 2, and then 3 units in the direction of rotation, 1, 2, 3. But to get to B prime, notice that you're going to count 2 units along the y-axis. So now it switches. So those 2 units were along the x-axis, and now they switch to 2 units along the y-axis. So you count 2 units along the y-axis, and then 3 units in the direction of rotation. So the 3 switches from the y value to the x value, and because you're moving to the second quadrant, it becomes -3. So it's 2, 3 units, and B was 2 units and 3 units this way. So switches y to x, and one of them will change signs. Now what you might do for rotations is look at what happens if I had 2 more points. These 2 points down here, it's a little bit off the page, but these 2 points down here. So what are the coordinates of these 2 points, and how do you state what's happening with the coordinates as far as switching places and changing signs? So this coordinate will be a -2, -3. How does that compare with -3, +2? So what's going on as far as switching places and which one switches signs? And if you go from This is a 90-degree rotation. So to get from this point to this point, it's another 90-degree rotation. So how do the coordinates of this point compare to the coordinates of this point? And then get back to the very beginning to go from this point up here to B. That's another 90-degree rotation. So how do the coordinates of this point compare with 2, 3? And notice 180-degree rotation, what happens to the coordinates? They actually maintain the same order, but both switch signs. So it becomes a -2, -3, -2, -3. If I look at B prime and 180 degrees to this point right here, the coordinates will remain in the same order, -3, 2, but they will switch, both will switch signs. So this will become a 3, and this will become a -2. So the coordinates of this point right here are 3, 1, 2, 3, -2. So rotations are a bit complicated, but with some practice, you can use those coordinates, especially if you're doing 90-degree rotations around the origin. And you can look at the order and what signs change.